wondering that herself. Wondering, too, why she cared whether or not her ex-husband showed up. "I don't know," she answered. "When did this place get so packed?" "It's Saturday night, and football season hasn't started. What else are people going to do?" Tessa asked, but did not let Sara change the subject. "Where's Jeffrey?" "Maybe he won't come." Tessa smiled in a way that let Sara know she was holding back a snide comment. "Go ahead and say it." "I wasn't going to say anything," Tessa said, and Sara could not tell if she was lying or not. "We're just dating." Sara paused, wondering whom she was trying to convince, Tessa or herself. She added, "It's not even serious." "I know." "We've barely even kissed." Tessa held up her palms in resignation. "I know," she repeated, a smirk on her lips. "Just a few dates, that's all." "You don't have to convince me." Sara groaned as she leaned back against the railing. She felt stupid, like a teenager instead of a grown woman. She had divorced Jeffrey 2 years ago after catching him with the woman who owned the sign shop in town. Why she had started seeing him again was as much a mystery to Sara as it was to her family. A ballad came on, and the lights dimmed. Sara watched the mirrored ball drop down from the ceiling, scattering little squares of light all over the rink. "I need to go to the bathroom," Sara told her sister. "Will you keep an eye out for Jeff?" Tessa glanced over Sara's shoulder. "Somebody just went in." "There are 2 stalls now." Sara turned toward the women's restroom just in time to see a large teenage girl go in. Sara recognized the girl as Jenny Weaver, one of her patients. She waved, but the girl didn't see her. Tessa muttered, "Hope you can wait." Sara frowned, watching another teenager she did not recognize follow Jenny into the restroom. At this rate, Sara would go into renal failure before Jeffrey arrived. Tessa tilted her head toward the front door. "Speaking of tall, dark, and handsome." Sara felt a foolish smile come to her lips as she watched Jeffrey make his way toward the rink. He was still dressed for work in a charcoal gray suit with a burgundy tie. As chief of police for Grant County, he knew most of the people in the room. He glanced around, looking for Sara, she supposed, stopping here and there to shake hands. She refused to do anything that would get his attention as he walked through the crowd. At this point in their relationship, Sara was content to let Jeffrey do all of the work. Sara had met Jeffrey on one of her earlier cases as town coroner. She had taken the helm of the medical examiner's office as a way to earn extra money to buy out her retiring partner at the Heartsdale Children's Clinic. Even though she had paid off Dr. Barney years ago, Sara still kept the job. She liked the challenge of pathology. 12 years ago, Sara had done her residency in the emergency room of Atlanta's Grady Hospital. Going from such a fast-paced, life-and-death job to tummy aches and sinus infections at the clinic had been a shock to her system. The coroner's job was a challenge that helped keep her mind sharp. Jeffrey finally caught sight of her. He stopped in the middle of shaking Betty Reynolds' hand, the corners of his mouth rising slowly, then dipping into a frown as he was pulled back into conversation with the owner of the town's Five and Dime. Sara could guess what Betty was talking about. The store had been broken into twice in the last 3 months. Betty's posture was adversarial, and even though Jeffrey's attention was obviously elsewhere, she continued to speak to him. Finally, Jeffrey nodded, giving Betty a pat on the back as he shook her hand, probably making an appointment to talk with her tomorrow. He extricated himself, then walked toward Sara, a sly smile on his face. "Hey," Jeffrey said. Before she could stop herself, Sara was shaking his hand the way almost everyone else in the rink had. "Hello, Jeffrey," Tessa interrupted, her tone uncharacteristically sharp. It was usually Eddie, their father, who was rude to Jeffrey. Jeffrey gave a puzzled smile. "Hey, Tessie." "Uh-huh," Tessa mumbled, pushing off from the rail. She skated away, tossing Sara a knowing look over her shoulder. Jeffrey asked, "What was that about?" Sara pulled back her hand, but Jeffrey held on to her fingers just long enough to let her know it was his choice to release her. He was so damn sure of himself. More than anything else, this quality appealed to Sara at a very base level. She crossed her arms, saying, "You're late." "I had trouble getting away." "Is her husband out of town?" He gave her the same look he gave witnesses he knew were lying. "I was talking to Frank," he said, naming the lead detective on the Grant County squad. "I told him that he's in charge tonight. I don't want anything to interrupt us."